What's up everybody, this is Donnie with Pvgna.com. Today's video is going to be a replay review on request for one of our Discord users who brought me this replay, and I thought it illustrated some really good points about itemization. And since we're kind of focusing on itemization, it seems like this week, I wanted to just kind of talk about this replay and the item choices, because I think it answers a really good question that a lot of people probably deal with in their games, where you have an excellent start. We're going to watch H031 here on the Shadow Fiend for this game, having a really good start. He dominates mid lane against an Arc Warden. He gets a ton of kills early on, and then they end up losing the game despite him having the highest level in the game, despite him having a lot of control over the game in the mid lane. But he just doesn't seem to be able to end this game. And I think this is something that a lot of pub players suffer from. It's where they have a good early game, maybe they're outskilling their opposing team, but they just don't quite have the tools to end the game on their terms. And that can be a big issue. And it can make you feel like your team is holding you back because, you know, you have this great early game, this great mid game, but you just can't win. So we're going to look at this replay, and we're going to look at his itemization specifically, because that is the main thing that I focused on as being the issue. Obviously, there's a few little, you know, like missed CS here and there. His mid lane efficiency isn't the best. I think he could have focused on pushing the lane out more against this Arc Warden, putting the Arc Warden in a situation where he has to last hit under tower on a regular basis, and then going and farming a couple jungle camps and coming back to the lane, because that's what Shadow Fiend really excels at in the laning stage, is that early pressure and being able to take multiple camps quickly with his raises and then come back and not miss any CS in the mid lane. So we're just going to look at him kind of getting this lead real quick as his Tusk makes a bunch of nice rotations. We can see that he's 5-0 right now in the game. And we can see that here he picks up drums as his first item. And this is the first item that I want to talk about, actually, because drums is a really good item. It's a really good early game item, and it's pretty good on Shadow Fiend. But in this particular game, I think that this is one of the best games to go Eul Scepter, and here's why. First of all, drums is good because it gives you, movement speed. It works well with Shadow Fiend, and we'll see that he kind of goes for this like high move speed, high mobility build on Shadow Fiend with SNY and Hurricane Pike, and obviously the move speed talent because it's really good. But in this game, there are 4 slows on the enemy team. There's, Arc Warden has a slow, Void has a slow, Lich's Frost stuff slows, and Tide has a slow as well. And slows are something that really counters movement speed, because even though you're fast move speed, once you get hit with a couple slows, it doesn't matter how much gold and, even talent you've invested into move speed, you're still going to be super slow, and you're not going to be able to maneuver around how you'd like to in fights. And that can be a really big deal. Plus, if he goes Euls in this game, it gives him solo kill potential. And he's already snowballing really well. And having that burst, that magical burst of, the Euls into Requiem combo is extremely good against Void, it's extremely good against Tidehunter, and it's extremely good against Arc Warden. Having good right click and high attack speed doesn't do a whole lot against a hero like Void and a hero like Arc Warden. So basically, a Eul Scepter would allow him to take his snowballing lead and snowball even harder and threaten these other heroes and pressure lanes much more heavily than he can with just, an SNY and drums. And we're going to look at this fight now that is happening and also illustrate why this Eul Scepter would be such a good pickoff. They start off the fight with a good kill on Arc Warden. Void comes in, Chronos 2 of his teammates. Everybody sort of converges on this fight in the mid lane. And despite having a pretty good turnaround after the Chronosphere, they doom Void, the supports on Radiant come in and they slow Shadow Fiend. We can see that with a Yasha and a drums, he's still super slow. He cannot get away from this Death Ward. Now, if he has a Euls here, he can, number one, he could Euls himself to dodge both the Frost Blast and the Cask from Witch Doctor. Or he could simply Euls the Witch Doctor here on the low ground and completely stop the Death Ward, which would negate all the damage that ends up killing him and giving this big streak to the Witch Doctor. He has a 7 kill streak. He gives Witch Doctor 1,000 gold. And on a snowbally hero, giving the other team big chunks of gold like this is a really big deal. And they would have ended up taking a pretty nice trade, getting 3 kills, only losing a support Shadow Shaman. But instead, they lose their highest net worth hero in the game, and it's sort of just a telling moment for this game where a Eul Scepter and the utility that it gives, in addition to the solo kill potential, would have been really, really nice in this game. And in this particular scenario, we're going to watch them try and kill Tidehunter. He has max souls, he has Requiem, he could definitely burst Tidehunter down here, but he doesn't have any setup for it because his team doesn't have any stuns. Both their supports are dead. Now if he had Euls, he could simply Euls Tide, drop the Requiem underneath him, and we can see them now trying to chase and kill this Tide, which should have been a completely easy kill. We can see that because of this build that he's going, he basically just has to run in and kind of hit people with his right clicks. He already has a Gyrocopter that can accomplish that, and their team really doesn't have a whole lot of AoE, other than Gyrocopter, of course. They have a lot of single target disables, they have a lot of single target stuns, but the Radiant team has a ton of team fight. All they have to do is basically all their heroes press R and the fight is over. We can also see that H031 is having a really hard time using Requiem. We haven't seen a single Requiem used yet, and that's a pretty big deal. And it also makes sense because there are just a ton of stuns on the other team, so it's really hard for him to just kind of walk in and use Requiem until he has a BKB. And even if he has a BKB, Void can simply chrono him and cancel it. So to use Requiem in a fight, he really needs to kind of isolate somebody, Euls them, drop the Requiem there, or wait till chrono is used and then BKB and use it. We can see here that the fight is very split up. Void is stunned, there's Arc Warden, Tide is doomed. It is a very good fight, but Shadow Fiend, with the build that he has, is just basically like a hard-hitting creep. He has to, run at these heroes and just right-click them down. The Void was totally burstable, again, with a Euls combo. The Arc Warden was burstable with a Euls Requiem combo. And the Tidehunter was also catchable if he Euls him and then dropped a couple raises as well, since he was already doomed and couldn't really escape in that way. And in this fight, I really just wanted to highlight the importance of using Requiem at the beginning of a fight. If you're not using it to burst somebody, it's really good to just use the Requiem as soon as the fight breaks out, because, remember, Requiem, in addition to doing a lot of damage, does a 50% damage reduction. 50% is massive. So once this Chronosphere is dropped, instead of waiting and kind of repositioning, right-clicking, dropping some raises, just Requiem immediately, you might end up actually saving your heroes that are chronoed, because it would significantly reduce the amount of damage. You might even have the Radiant team running away from the Requiem and not doing damage to your heroes in the chrono. Using the Requiem right here immediately could have completely turned this fight around as well. So don't be afraid to drop the Requiem, especially if you're already BKBing anyway. This fight that we're going to watch here is kind of the beginning of the end of this game, and we can see again that, despite having a 15-1 and 6 KDA, he contributes little or nothing to the fight simply because he really has no utility. He is a walking right clicker basically, and when he tries to drop his ultimate late in this fight, he just gets stunned down, doesn't even get it off, and it's a massive gold swing, and everybody on his team can kind of tell at this point that the game is not going how it should. So as we watch this game come to its inevitable conclusion at this point, there's just a couple points that I wanted to highlight. KDA is one of the least useful stats to use in terms of figuring out what your impact in a game is. We can see that he still has the best KDA in the game. However, what sort of impact does anybody on the Dire team have? This super good KDA Shadow Fiend, what impact is he having in these fights? Pretty much nothing. He's pretty much contributing nothing to the game at this point because he just doesn't have any utility on the hero. All he can do is right click, and when he's locked in a Chronosphere or stunned by a Ravage or trying to run away from the millions of slows that the Radiant team has, he's doing nothing. So all that net worth, all the KDA that he built up through his good early game and mid game is completely useless. And there's a couple other things, in this game he could have spent a lot more time split pushing, and if he had gone for this more utility-based build of Euls and BKB, maybe E-Blade into Travels, he could have split pushed really heavily, and made this Void, who's really the only catch on the enemy team, chase him around the map and slow down the Void's farm that way. There's just basically always something more that you can do in a game to impact it. So don't just think that once you've gotten a good early game, once you've dominated one hero on the enemy team in your laning matchup, that you've done your job. Your job is never done until the throne has fallen on the other side of the map. So continue looking for ways that you can impact the game, whether that be through item choices, through helping your supports buy support items, through taking better team fights, using your skills better. There's always small mistakes that add up over the course of a game. You basically have a set number of mistakes that you can make in a game of Dota because everybody is making mistakes all the time. But the larger mistakes that you make are significantly more impactful for the outcome of the game, and sometimes you can't really come back from them. In this case, we saw that the itemization was a really big mistake, and that's okay. It's just a learning experience. But keep that in mind as you're going forward and think a little bit more about what you can add to the game as opposed to just trying to have the most kills, the most gold at the end of the game. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I don't mean this as any sort of, flame. It's just constructive criticism because that's what we want to do. We want to help people get better at this game that we all love to play. Thanks for tuning in. Hope this helps. Go win some MMR.